handing the White House a diplomatic tool by saying, oh, look, here's in your relationship to potentially force some change in Saudi Arabia?
We haven't sensed any motivation on the part of the White House to really push forward changes or with pressing Saudi Arabia on any of its policies. So I do think that this is an authentic rebuke by Congress against the president.
But keep in mind the context of this, which is just that Congress has, for 18 years really, ceded its power when it comes to the foreign policy issues that face this nation. We're still operating under the same AUMF. We're still operating under the same, the authorization of the use of military force. We're still operating under the same sort of regime that was put in place after 9/11. Congress has kicked the can on this issue time and again, and I do think it's significant. It is symbolic, but it is significant. But I think it needs to lead to more steps in order to actually have any real power. Otherwise, this is just sort of Congress saying, yes, we're still here, and pretending as if, time and again, Congress likes to cede its power over an issue to the administrative branch and then complain about it. But it's a lot easier to do that than to make hard choices.
We're also seeing the financial markets show some nervousness right now about the trade dispute with China, about slowdown in Europe, about Brexit. Where do we start the new year on the foreign policy front, Ed?
I think that the trade war with China is the main sort of question that looms over all this. And they have that sort of 90-day grace period in which the president said he wouldn't raise tariffs. And in theory, they're supposed to negotiate during that period. But I've heard that within the White House, people like Peter Navarro are still very much entrenched in their view, and that they're hoping to ride out the 90 days and keep the tariffs on. So I think that will lead to more unsteady movement in the markets. And also, I think the shutdown that we talked about earlier will also shake up the markets. I think that the Republicans have to be thinking about that.
Margaret, Mick Mulvaney, management now moving from OMB sort of, and is also now chief of staff for the president. You have the Interior Secretary, Brian Zinke, departing. Who is next, or is the president done shaking up his team?
I don't think that shakeup is done. In fact, it was only a week ago when the world thought that Nick Ayers would be the president's next chief of staff. But if he had come in under that arrangement they were discussing, it also would have been an interim arrangement. The president wasn't comfortable with that a week ago. Part of that interim arrangement would have been to execute the sort of staff overhaul, shakeup, whatever you want to call it, that is now kind of slow rolling underway. Will Mick Mulvaney execute it differently than Nick Ayers? Possibly, but it's all up to the president. It's always been up to the president. So some of the other folks who may or may not be on the chopping block, the education secretary, the commerce secretary, but it will ultimately be up to the president, and always would have been. For months now, they've been looking at the midterm elections as a reset point, understanding that if the Democrats took the House, it would change the dynamic of the second 2 years of the president's term. And now the president is trying to go into this new era in as strong a position as possible. So folks who have baggage, political weakness that could drag him down, he wants to be able to transition them out. In some of these places, including Interior, the number two in command would be able to step into that job without some of that political baggage. So yes, I do think that they're looking right now in the next few months at how many other positions they can turn over and who could step in.
But Kelsey, the president's going to need Congress to confirm them.
Yeah, and that is something that I've talked to many senators about, their concerns about backlogging the number of people who need to be confirmed. You have to remember, they still need to nominate and approve an attorney general. But the thing that I think is interesting about the White House strategy here is they are looking forward to Democrats in the House planning a number of investigations. And I've heard Democrats say that they don't think that just getting rid of the head of an agency is going to forestall those investigations. If it's the White House intent to avoid that, this may not be the strategy that actually gets the outcome that they're hoping for.
Prepare yourself for 2019. Ben, we have an interesting thing that may be in the next few days in Washington with criminal justice reform being promised floor time. This is Jared Kushner's project that he feels personally invested in. There's been some disagreement within the Republican Party about whether it should even see the light of day.
Yes.
What does this signal that he was able to get Mitch McConnell to give some precious time to this bill?
I think it's very significant. I mean, the fact is that there had been a real push within the Republican coalition for criminal justice reform at the state level, backed by the Koch brothers and other groups that really wanted to see it as something that was part of the Republican policy portfolio. That really was short-circuited by the existence of the Donald Trump 2016 candidacy running on a Law and Order message that sounded more familiar to those who think that we might still be living in the late 70s. And frankly, the nomination and approval of Jeff Sessions as Attorney General was something that really short-circuited that process. Jared Kushner worked very hard within the White House to try to push this forward, and I think it's significant that this is something that's finally seen at the Senate level.
All right. Thanks to all of you. We'll be right back.
Parking splat. And we covered it. Talk to farmers. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
A whole new way to care for newborns is born. New Johnson's Cotton Touch Wash and Lotion, made with real cotton and enhances your gentle touch. A new soft, a new touch, a new gentle. New Johnson's Cotton Touch. Choose gentle.
Tut mir leid. Und ihr macht mich immer so wütend.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Tonight, catch a new NCIS Los Angeles on CBS. But the savings are just beginning at Story Furniture. Just imagine 3 football fields full of furniture, and half of everything in the store is half off. And right now, get up to 12 with no interest. All rugs and accessories 50% off. And holiday bedroom, dining room, and occasional 50% off. And don't miss our factory authorized sales event from Hooker and Westfield. Save an additional 20% off our already low prices. Story Lee's half off, half of everything sale. Absolutely ends December 31st.
Mom, thank God you're gonna be okay.
So relieved. But you both should know when my time comes, I have a final expense policy with Senior Care USA.
If you're over 50, call Senior Care USA now to learn more about final expense insurance plans.
When I called, the quote was free, and there was no pressure. I'm so glad you'll be taken care of.
Call 1-800-392-4701. That's 1-800-392-4701.
That's it for us today. Thank you for watching. Until next week, for Face the Nation, I'm Margaret Bennett.
This is extraordinary. This has altered your life.
This is the worst of Florence.
This is bigger though than opening up the border. This is historic. There's only Sandra Bullock, Monday, and later this week, Emily Blunt.
I just got out of class and was headed to work. I never thought that I would be injured in a car accident, but it happened, and I knew I needed help.
I'm Attorney Alexander Shenard, proud to be from Alabama, and a man for the people of Alabama. If you need me, call me, Alabama.
I'm Jay from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I called you, Alexander Shenard, and you helped me. Alexander Shenard got me $175,000.
I'm Attorney Alexander Shenard. If you've been injured in an accident, call me, Alabama.
At Kroger, we are eliminating waste to zero to reduce hunger to zero. We are partnering with Feeding America to make more food donations to local food banks and with World Wildlife Fund to end food waste. But we can't do it alone, and we hope you'll join us in creating a world with zero hunger and zero waste. Visit thekrogerco.com to learn how you can help.
Scam? Ripped off? Call the WHNT News 19 Consumer Action Line, 850-0719.
You're watching WHNT2 in beautiful HD.
This week on today's Homeowner, we're fixing up a family's backyard for fall fun. Therapeutic, isn't it?
It is kind of in a trance.
I've been helping homeowners improve their home for a lot of years. They think it's intimidating, but it actually can be a lot of fun.
And we're here to help.
Good job, look at there.
Dad's the expert, but I've learned a few things along the way.
Practical, realistic home improvement information is what today's Homeowner is all about. Be sure to go online now and follow Today's Homeowner on Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, and more to find out the latest tools, tips, and techniques for your home.
This is how we plan our surprises. Pick up on hints and find the best values on the best brands around, including a few stocking stuffers. At the Home Depot, this is how we help you give gifts that mean more. This is why. Get a free select power tool or battery when you buy qualifying tool kits at the Home Depot. More saving, more doing.
With its durability, numerous style choices, low maintenance, and energy efficiency features, metal roofing is one of the best choices for today's homeowners. Protect your home and tell us how your home survived nature's wrath by visiting metalroofing.com for a chance to win $1,500. Chelsea and I have so much to be grateful for. Top of the list is you.
Thanks for being loyal to today's homeowner fans and following along on our home improvement adventures.
We hope you have a joyful holiday season and a bright 2019.
Happy holidays.
This house was built in 1986 and it's home for John and Rebecca Dalgety and their two children, Gibson and Ellie.
So we've lived here for about 8 years now.
Our house is pretty much the right size for us. Big backyard.
We just want it to be a very welcoming space where we can have friends over, we can just be hanging out in the back and watching our kids play together. And right now it's just so boring and it's just kind of an eyesore.
There's things that we'd love to do that I don't have to know how to do.
So Chelsea and I stopped by to see what we can do to help.
This is our little patio area, but when we moved in, it was really small. In fact, you can see the line.
Oh
of
my
where,
gosh.
That's all you had?
That's all we had.
That's all you
John,
get.
yeah, John and my dad extended it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's unavoidable when you're adding onto the concrete, but you got it all nice and smooth, and that's a lot of work.
We could definitely stain it, paint it.
That sounds great. We love to sit out here at this little table with our kids. It's kind of falling apart, it looks like.
Would you be opposed to just painting it?
No, that's great.
But don't paint it black. Have some fun with it. Don't paint it black.
We love color, so we're great with proper color.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have some kind of gutter issue going on. When it rains, water keeps hitting this piece of molding.
We clean the gutter out pretty frequently.
Yeah, and those leaves just blow over constantly. No matter what season, it stays full of leaves.
Jane, take you to the store over here too. This is a big issue for us here.
Boy,
rotten wood and
all the splash coming off there. No gutter there, splashing back against that.
Yeah, we don't have like a rain diverter or anything. That door has been on our to-do list for at least 2.5 years.
Is that just a storage room?
I just want to keep my lawnmower and the outside tools in.
That's a new door unit right there. Now look at this crepe myrtle.
Okay, don't look at me. Look at him. That's his
John.
fault.
Don't talk about that. You planted it just a tad
They're
close.
so desperate for sunlight.
Yeah, I didn't think it would grow that tall when I first planted it. I thought, well, maybe I could move it at some point later, but later never came.
It's just so overwhelming. Every time we look at it, we really don't know where to start.
Well, after John helps us figure this out, he can fix anything.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it'll be.
The list keeps growing.
So in addition to adding new gutters, we're replacing the rotten siding and storage room door. Then we'll dress up the patio with some stain and a paver border. Plus, we'll restack the tree ring and transplant the trees that are too close to the home. On the morning we return to start work, there's plenty of urgency because the weather is calling for rain and we have to remove the old leaky gutters before the new ones can go up, along with some unexpected cargo inside them. Is that Rebecca?
Yeah, that's Gibson's sure.
Oh, okay.
No telling. Very typical, Gibson playing with toys and throwing toys around.
There have been so many balls thrown at there, Nerf gun bullets, BBs. Those gutters have caught lots and lots of junk over the years.
Meanwhile, Chelsea and Rebecca clear off the patio while our handyman Bear digs up the crepe myrtle trees so the new gutters can extend over that area as well. The new gutters are actually being custom made on site by the company that will install them.
We're just now getting started on the project, and there's a lot going on.
This machine in the back of their truck forms the K-style gutter profiles from coils of coated aluminum, so they are seamless and the exact length we need. They start at the end opposite the downspout and work the gutter downhill to ensure it drains properly. So see, they're seamless aluminum, so you don't have any joints in it. Plus, these are 5 inches instead of 4 inches.
They have to look better.
Yeah, they definitely look a lot better, and They're going to work a lot better, more capacity and so forth. I mean, you got a lot of water coming down a roof like that. We kick the downspout out this way because before it was just throwing all the water back on here.
Is there a purpose to that?
Well, it's just you don't want any more water than you have to have here. That's where a lot of the mold and mildew is coming from. This will be in so fast they'll have this done.
Looks like the gutter guys installed them just in time. We're about to get a big test of it.
Looking good.
Yeah, it is looking a little gloomy and threatening out here. So what we'll do is, John, you and I can tackle the rotten wood over on the siding. If you guys can go ahead and pressure wash and get everything nice and clean here, and then you guys can get started on the paper.
I will get it done. Let's clean the patio first while we're at it. Now, wait, hold on a second. I have a question. Okay. The guy mentioned something about pavers. Is that what
Yep,
he's
that's
on?
them right there.
Okay.
Want to see what we're doing? I'll show you what we're doing.
Okay.
So we're just gonna do an outline all the way around the patio. That's here, 3 high, yeah, and then this one will go like this, in this direction.
Okay, so it's gonna be like a border that goes
Right,
all the
and
way.
this will be flush with the top of the patio, so we'll have to dig a little grass and dirt out.
Okay.
And then we'll fill the void with concrete to hold everything together.
That's gonna look great.
I think it's gonna look really nice, and then, we're gonna stay in patio too, so
Okay.
they'll complement each other really
It'll
well.
look real finished and polished.
Yep, exactly.
This is how most people collect leaves. They put them into a plastic bag inside a trash can. There's nothing wrong with that, except when you go to remove the bag. Often, the bag forms suction at the bottom, and you can't get the bag out. Now, how many times you pull on it? Have you ever seen that before? There you go. The bag is absolutely stuck in. So I thought the way to solve that, to break that vacuum, is to introduce a little air by drilling holes into the can. So I took a 5/8" diameter drill bit and I drilled a series of holes around the outside of the can and also in the bottom. What those holes do is they allow the air in to break the vacuum. So now when you go to remove the bag's full of leaves, it slides out with no problem at all.
Simple Solutions is brought to you by Type Bond, the pros a day. After the break.
Around 1 or 2 o'clock, the sky fell out and it just started pouring.
Check out our online store, offering today's homeowner apparel, drinkware, accessories, and a whole lot more. Visit today'shomeowner.com/store. Hi, I'm Danny Lipford. The new year means new projects. Enter the New Year New Tools giveaway and you can win $1,000 worth of Ryobi tools. Just visit today'shomeowner.com/sweepstakes and let us know what project you're planning for 2019. Enter today. The best glue for serious woodworking is also the best wood for household projects and repairs. Type Bond 3 is easy to use and provides plenty of time to get your materials set. Plus, it's tough, durable, and waterproof, so you can use it anywhere. And the non-toxic, solvent-free formula means it's safe for your family, and cleanup is a breeze. Type Bond 3, the ultimate wood glue for serious woodworking and real families everywhere.
Okay, so it isn't the most photogenic project I've done, but these DIY covers are really handy for storing wreaths for every holiday. Come see how to make them and how to hang them on this month's episode of Checking In with Chelsea at checkinginwithchelsea.com.
If you've been injured in an accident that wasn't your fault, and you're struggling to pay your bills while your case is dragging on, that's where Oasis Financial comes in. Only Oasis has Oasis Express Cash that can get you from $500 to $25,000 in as little as 24 hours, faster than anyone else. There's no risk and no out-of-pocket cost.
It was so simple. I made one phone call. Oasis was able to give me the money within 24 hours.
To pay for my electric bill, my rent, and my groceries for my children.
And even if you end up losing your case, Oasis lets you keep the money. So there's absolutely no risk to you. You don't have to worry about repaying Oasis.
If I had lost my case, then I wouldn't be responsible for paying the money back. And that was a blessing.
Oasis, they killed me and they helped me out. They gave me my life back.
See how much money you can get before your case settles. Call Oasis Financial because life moves faster than your case. 1-800-758-5874. 1-800-758-5874.
We're giving John and Rebecca's backyard a fall fix-up. Their sagging gutters have already been replaced, and now John and I are removing the rotten siding while Chelsea and Rebecca fire up the pressure washer.
I've never met a homeowner who didn't like to pressure wash, and Rebecca is no different.
I love pressure washing. I had never done it before. Chelsea showed me, and she was so neat, and she had these little rows, and they perfectly overlapped.
I like to do it very methodically and very precise so that I know where I've been and where I'm going, and so I know I'm not going to miss any spots. Rebecca's a little bit different in that.
I was just kind of like a hyped up bunny over here and over here. But to each their own.
Why did you try to go with the whole unit instead of just using the frame?
Well, the door was in okay shape, the old door. It was a smooth door, and all the other doors on your house are the 6-pack.
Okay.
Plus, by the time we redid all of the framing and did all of that, it's just easier just to get the whole entire unit.
If you're buying a door unit, the first thing you need to tell the pro at the store is which way it swings.
It's just the way it swings in or the way it swings out. So if it's swinging in to the right, that's a right-hand swing. If it's swinging in to the left, it's a left-hand swing.
This new door unit will help seal out drafts, but if you have older windows, they may be drafty as well. To combat those drafts in cooler weather, you can apply window insulating film on the inside of the opening. The heavy-duty film in this kit from Duck Brand is puncture resistant, so it's great for high traffic areas, and a simple hair dryer helps shrink it tight so the view is crystal clear.
All right, put it just a little bit lower. Changing up the cedar siding is really important to me because that is a problem for this type of house. And that's something we haven't been able to tackle in the past because I just thought it'd be too much work.
With lap siding, the key is to match the reveal of the existing boards so the rows line up across the house and each is identical in width.
Right on the money. All right, excellent. Watching Danny tinker that board, the ease of that, made me realize that I can do that myself.
Your paint job will make it just look beautiful.
The new gutters will prevent all of these repairs from being necessary again in the future, but we didn't expect the test so soon.
Around 1 or 2 o'clock, the sky fell out, and it just started pouring.
Well, Dad, you always say, do it right, sleep at night. You definitely did it right on this project.
But at least the timing wise.
Yeah.
And being able to get the siding up and the gutters work. What a great test for those gutters.
Seeing that all the water was going towards the end of the house now, not falling down the center, not falling down near along the door, is really amazing.
You know, the thunderstorms we experienced yesterday are not uncommon here on the Gulf Coast, but it was a perfect test for us to see how our gutters and downspouts were going to work, and they worked great. They gathered the water, the downspouts moved it safely away from the house, exactly what we want. You know, it's also not uncommon for those vicious storms to knock out the power in certain neighborhoods, and kind of admire John for having his portable generator ready to go. Actually, he's going to test it out in a little while I help Chelsea and Bear try to get our pavers in around the patio to make it look a lot better.
Testing a generator occasionally is important to be sure that it provides backup power when you need it, whether it's because of a hurricane or a winter storm. This model from Champion runs on either gasoline or propane, which is important because after a major storm, gas stations are often closed. Next, John joins Rebecca to begin taking apart the lopsided tree ring.
When did you put these down?
I just put them down after bought the house, did you not?
Did you do it yourself? I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, I placed all of them. They were straight back then. So I don't know how they ended up saying what they did.
Yeah, they're so dirty. That was just something that was always on our to-do list, but it never ranked very high.
We're trying to save this grass to where we're not beating it down or getting a lot of dirt on it and everything. Actually, Bear, if you want to, you can go ahead and start getting the paver base and follow me up all of that. So exactly where we need it right there.
All right.
The trench around the patio is being filled with paver base and packed down until it's 9.5 inches below the patio surface, where we will need to start stacking out our pavers.
All right, what do you have going on, Dad?
Well, I made this little jig out of plywood.
Okay.
And so it's going to tell us how far out we put this first course here, and then how far down, so that we got the right sequence, so we end up with the 3 bricks and then the cap brick right on top. Okay. So why don't you just lay these things out, and I'll come back. A rubber mallet's perfect for that, not only to keep these in line, but to keep you in line.
Oh, you better not use that on me. How many jigs have you made in your day?
You mean like the dance jig?
No, no dance.
Oh, no, the dance jig.
When the first course is properly placed, construction adhesive and begin laying the next row.
Meanwhile, I'm setting John and Rebecca up with similar jigs for the tree ring. When you're trying to make a living as a contractor, you're looking for any way to kind of speed it up and still have that accuracy. So you always look for the right jig to be able to do it. Here, let me do that jig.
No.
Once John and Rebecca dig out the footing, they fill it in with paver base and begin restacking the stones around the tree. Over at the patio, we continue stacking the pavers until they're 3 rows high. Then we backfill between the pavers and patio with more paver base. We then mix up some fast-setting concrete to fill the last few inches before setting the final pavers perpendicular to the rest of them.
So, you know, whether or not you're out on the job site or even in your workshop or your garage, having a nice set of sawhorses is awesome. You want to make sure, of course, that they're sturdy. And Tough Built has a sturdy set of sawhorses. This is their adjustable folding set. Right, Dan?
Yes, this is a nice little unit. It's pretty strong, too.
Yeah.
One of them will handle up to 1,100 pounds.
It can hold me.
There you go.
And look at this. If you grab your 2x4, it turns instantly into a work table or a portable workbench. You've got a piece of plywood right there. Let's pop that on. And look right here. Ta-da!
Combined, this will handle up to 2,200 pounds.
Wow.
So it'll handle a lot of weight.
That's awesome. And they're pegs. So if you need to do a vertical cut or you need to scribe your wood or you just simply want to store it, those pegs hold it nicely too, right, Dan?
There you go.
This Nestle product segment built by the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. Coming up, Rebecca's cleaning isn't so clean. Today's homeowner is brought to you by Carrier. Turn to the experts. Eliminate mold and mildew the easy way with Wet and Forget Indoor Mold and Mildew Disinfectant Cleaner. Just spray and wipe to clean, deodorize, and disinfect kitchens, basements, and baths. There's no scrubbing, no bleach, and no irritating fumes. Wet and Forget, easy cleaning solutions for everyday problems.
Busy homeowners need the right tools to get their do-it-yourself projects done correctly. When you want to refurbish, renovate, or repair, Woodcraft has the experienced staff to help you achieve extraordinary results using quality products and accessories. To polish your skills, take a class at a Woodcraft store. Browse how-to articles with Woodcraft Magazine. Get inspired by Woodcraft social media. Find this and more at all Woodcraft stores and woodcraft.com.
Each year, the damaged electrical wires cause more than 50,000 home fires. Protect your home with an ArcBoss circuit interrupter outlet. AFCI outlets detect wiring problems and shut off the circuit when it senses an arc. Learn more at leviton.com/AFCI.
This is a special report for people who want the facts about reverse mortgages without the hype. You've seen a lot of commercials telling you how you can turn the equity of your home into tax-free cash. But do you really know if a reverse mortgage loan can help you? Call today. For a limited time only, we'll send you a free special report. There's no obligation, and the call is free. So don't delay.
Call 1-800-794-1152. That's 1-800-794-1152.
Live Alert 19 has some great features, including better alerts for lightning, for severe weather, and for just general thunderstorms that don't really meet severe criteria. You get more in-depth information about what's in your area and how far it is from your location. If you want the fastest alerts, the clearest looking radar, and a forecast not generated by a computer states what you have Live Alert 19 on your device. It's the best weather tool out there.
John and Rebecca have been cleaning up their backyard to enjoy some cooler fall weather. And as soon as they finish restacking their tree ring, Rebecca attacks it with a pressure washer.
I was just kind of in my own little zone, and I looked up and everyone's cracking up. I was literally covered from head to toe in just brown speckled.
You know, when you're pressure washing, you think of things being clean. Rebecca didn't come away looking very clean on that project.
Yeah, you don't realize it's going to come back at you.
I think they were laughing because they were jealous.
Now we're trying to tackle all of the lines that we have here. Now what this is basically is old concrete and newer concrete, and this is nothing more than what we call a cold joint. It'll never look any better than this unless we completely resurface the entire concrete, or I'm going to try to disguise it a little bit by actually putting more joints in it and do a few score joints. I'm thinking cut this and continue it all the way across, take this and cut it across, Do the same thing here, then measure from there to here. In this point, put another joint there, and maybe it'll look completely intentional, and I know it'll look a lot better. We're using a chalk line to mark our cuts in a regular circular saw fitted with a diamond tip masonry blade to make them. The concrete is rough, so a guide board helps keep the cut straight.
All right, so we finally have dry weather. I think we should go ahead and attack the siding and put a fresh coat of paint on it. Okay. So which one of you wants to do the rolling?
I'll do the roll.
Yeah, okay. So the best thing is to just take the roller sideways and apply the paint on the siding. And then Rebecca, you come with the brush and do what we call back brushing and brush on the underside of the siding. Got it.
Painting is definitely not my thing. I'd rather do anything else than painting. But seeing the change that paint made to those old doors and the walls, it's worth the effort.
What Bear's working on right now is the little path going into the storage building, and we're using a basket weave pattern, which I always love. It's kind of a nice little random way of doing it, using aid of the pavers. And here's another great example and a great way you can enhance your backyard, just using pavers. While Bear works on that, I've got an accessory I want to show John for his new gutters. This is the gutter brush I was telling you about. And a lot of people think of it as something you clean your gutters with, but it's actually something that allows you not to have to clean the gutters hardly at all. So like a big pipe cleaner, all you have to do is just drop it right in the gutter, and I'll hand them to you. We'll run down both of these areas here, and that'll save you a lot of maintenance down the road. As John finishes up the gutters, I'm getting the concrete stain ready to coat the patio. But it's not paint. So you just want to put a light coat on everything and make it as consistent as you can.
I was so nervous when it was time to stain just because it sounds like it's such a permanent result.
And once she gets away from it a little bit, you've got a nice long extension there. So just light rolling. Again, we're not trying to paint it.
Danny's so sweet and so encouraging. He was like, "Here, you can do it. You know, have at it." And so, I was really cautious at first.
That's perfect. That's just perfect right there.
I thought it was going to take, an hour or two to get it all covered because it took a lot of power wash.
Therapeutic, isn't it?
It is. Kind of for the power wash and kind of in a trance.
Let's get this one square done right here.
Okay.
And then let him take over that one square. That way we can stay consistent.
Wow, I didn't know you were such a square.
I really don't think I'm square. I think that was an inappropriate comment.
Well, you don't want to be round either, though, do you?
No, I don't want to be round. While the concrete stain dries, we can turn our attention to the landscaping while Chelsea and Rebecca prep the patio furniture for paint.
This is kind of hard for so many pairs, but like keeping it the same distance away.
Yeah.
And then like if you're doing a back and forth, that you kind of go off before you come back. Otherwise, it's like a buildup on the edge.
Okay, and that's when it drifts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're going to take things a little differently and do a classic color on the furniture and give Dad a pop of color with the umbrella. Also, it's kind of nice having a color that's so close to the original color. So if you miss a spot, it's not obvious.
It's more forgiving, I guess.
The lazy man spray paint tricks. Well, maybe not lazy, but I'm going to work smarter, not harder. Yeah, that's right.
Closed captioning on today's homeowner is brought to you by Brome. Without a question about your home you'd like answered, call today's homeowner radio hotline, 1-800-946-4420.
Want professional exterior lighting? You need disc lights by Bell & Howell, the portable solar outdoor LED lights that lie flat to create a cascade of light. Disc lights convert the sun's energy into solar energy to run all night and turn on and off automatically. Disc lights are just right for your outdoor decor. And now they're yours for just $19.95 with free shipping. But there's more. Order today and you can get a second set of 4 disc lights. Just pay a separate fee. So don't delay. Order your Bell & Howell disc light. Call now.
Shannara.
I'm Alexander Shannara.
I am Alexander Shannara. Call me, Alabama.
Have you been denied credit or hit with high interest rates? A low credit score happens to many of us, especially if you've struggled with medical bills, divorce, student loans, job loss, and more. And millions of people are victims of incorrect items on their credit reports and don't even know it. This leads to a lower credit score. That's why you need credit repair now. We'll communicate with your creditors and the credit bureaus to address unfairly reported items, late payments, collections, charge-offs, and even bankruptcies. And that can lead to a higher credit score. Our proven process has resulted in past clients seeing on average 11 negative items removed from their credit report and a 40-point increase after the first 4 months in our program. Start working on your credit today. Call now to start repairing your credit score so that you can work toward getting the things you want, like a new car, new home, an education, or new job. Plus, call now and request your credit report and credit score for free in minutes.
Call 1-800-244-2393. That's 1-800-244-2393.
I'm Alexander Shinaro.
I'm Alexander Shinaro.
I am Alexander Shinaro. Call me, Alabama.
How would you like the latest home improvement articles, videos, contests, and more delivered right to your inbox? Be sure and sign up today for our Today's Homeowner e-newsletter. Visit todayshomeowner.com to find out more. John and Rebecca's backyard had some great spaces to enjoy, but they were all showing the wear and tear of the home's age. There was water-damaged wood on the house itself, and the paint had seen a few too many season changes. The seams in the dingy patio gave away its history, and though it was large enough, it wasn't much to look at. And the decorative tree ring in the back had deteriorated to the point that it was no longer decorative. Replacing the old gutters and adding new ones solved the water woes so we could replace the rotten wood and install a brand new door, all of which got a fresh coat of paint that cost less than $700. Adding score joints and concrete stain and a cool paver border made the patio look more like a flam destination than an accident and required just about $500 for those materials. Plus, we cleaned and restacked the aging tree ring and added some order to the landscape.
When you walk outside now, it's just so fresh and clean and inviting and almost like a canvas that we can change out as the seasons go by. It just looks so fresh and new. We love it.
Okay, I admit, maintaining a home can be a little overwhelming, but more and more homeowners are taking the same approach that John and Rebecca have taken here in only dealing with one side of the house at a time. The backyard's looking pretty good, and they even painted just one side of the house. So it makes it a little easier then for the next project, maybe to be one side or the front of the house. For smaller projects, a lot easier to manage. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this week's show. We enjoyed bringing it to you, and we'll do it again next week here on Today's Homeowner. I'm Danny Lippert. We'll see you then.
Makeup breath hairs. It's a big one.
Do you think we should, you want me to cut it?
Yeah, no, it's this. Come on.
Be sure to join us next week when we transform a young family's dated bathroom from 80s to modern elegance.
The year may be ending, but the savings are just beginning at Story Furniture. Just imagine 3 football fields full of furniture, and half of everything in the store is half off. And right now, get up to 12 months, no interest. All rugs and accessories, 50% off. And Paula Deen bedroom, dining room, and occasional, 50% off. And don't miss our factory offer our sales event from Hooker and Flexfield. Save an additional 20% off our already low prices. Story Lee's half off, half of everything sale. Absolutely ends December 31st.
Did you know that a dirty CPAP system could make you sick? If you knew what could be growing in your mask and hose, it would keep you up at night. Now, SoClean.com has released the world's first automated hands-free CPAP cleaner and sanitizer. With its patented design, SoClean is fast, effective, and hands-free, killing 99.9% of all CPAP germs and bacteria. Try SoClean now, 800-960-3417, or visit SoClean.com today.
Stop distracted driving before it stops you.
He'll have you at Aloha. Magnum PI, CBS Monday.
CBS Sports, your home of March Madness, the Masters, the PGA, PGA Tour,
SEC football, the NFL, and February 3rd, Super Bowl 53.
Week 15 in the NFL.
All right, JB, there's Kirk Cousins. Is there a player under more pressure or scrutiny today? I think not. Minnesota has lost 3 of their last 4, and they host the Miami Dolphins.
And there's Ryan Tannehill. There's no Miami miracle without this man. In the last 3 starts, 8 touchdowns, just 1 interception.
Marcus Mariota and the Tennessee Titans, they won 2 in a row, looking for a 3-win and rain at MetLife. That may add to that rushing total for Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, there he is. Eli Manning, the Giants, winners of 4 of their last 5 games. Eli Manning completing a career high 67% of his passes.
Stand by the flag. Ready on? Stand by the flag. 6-1.
3, 2, 1.
And hello, everyone. I'm James Brown. Welcome to the NFL Today, powered by Ram Trucks. On our air today, we have several games with playoff implications coming your way, but we begin with the Week 15 headlines here on CBS. Last week's miracle in Miami helped keep the Dolphins in the thick of the AFC wildcard race, and today they'll try to keep their momentum going as they take on the Vikings in Minnesota. And speaking of the Vikes, a continued offensive slump led to big changes this week on their coaching staff, and now Kirk Cousins, as Boomer mentioned, and company will try to right the ship and maintain a postseason bid. And in Pittsburgh, 2 storied franchises face off once again as the Patriots and the Steelers try to rebound from disappointing losses last week that put both in some unfamiliar territory.
The Dolphins are going to win it on the lateral. And Drake takes it in, and the Patriots stand stunned in disbelief.
It shouldn't have come down to that. Football's a crazy game. Never really been a part of anything like that. Got to make that tackle. Didn't suck it.
Came down to one play, but they just made one more play and we did.
The kick by Bosworth. He slipped and fell on the ball. It's loose. Oh, my goodness gracious. It is stunning.
We all need to look in the mirror and figure out what's going on. Things happen. I'm not going to make field conditions an excuse. It was slippery for everyone. It was disappointing here today. It's our job to fix it.
So the Patriots fall to the 3rd seed thanks to the Texans' win yesterday, with the Steelers seeded 4th in the current AFC playoff picture. Houston solidified its place in the postseason, but New England can move back to the 2 seed with the win over Pittsburgh and clinch the East crown with a Miami loss. The Chargers clinched the playoff berth with their win over the Chiefs on Thursday night, while a group of teams at 7-6 are in the playoff hunt. And surprise, surprise, with their win last night, the Browns are gaining ground in the hunt. All right, folks, joined here at the desk by my colleagues, experts, all including Phil Simms, Coach Bill Cowher, Nate Burleson, and Boomer. Always a great matchup when the Patriots and the Steelers get together.
JB, we are jacked up for this game at 4:25 right here on CBS. Look at the superlatives from both of these organizations. Consistency since 2001, 218 wins for the Patriots. Look at the success in the playoffs. And we always expect them to give us a great game. The Super Bowl wins, the Super Bowl appearances.
Work with your budget. Options start at $9.95 a month. Plus, you get a 30-day money-back guarantee. So call now for free information. And you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. And it's yours just for call.
In Choctaw County, training school. Kept rolling and
celery.
The history of Los Angeles, from the indigenous people all the way to the great rush of urbanization that began in the 50s.
We are in La Cañada Flint Ridge, which is about 15 minutes from downtown LA. This climate is a very different climate than the rest of the country. It's a Mediterranean climate. We can grow many things from all around the world. That means that there's a ton of biodiversity in both animals and plants. Descanso is a living museum. The gardens have over 15,000 plants that we keep in our collections that are credited. Each of our plants is cataloged and inventoried regularly. It means that species and varieties won't be lost. Some of our plants are critically endangered, so if they aren't in places like botanical gardens, they may not survive as a species.
Gardens are not nature. They reflect humankind's aspirations to create beauty, transcendence through plant nature.
Descanso is amazing because it has not been over-constructed or really much touched at all. What was originally here was this oak cover that's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old. The preservation of that is the most crucial part of keeping Descanso an important site for our future.
My name is Craig Torres. I'm a member of the Tongva, which are the indigenous people of the Los Angeles Basin. Descanso Gardens was built on an oak woodland. There were thousands of acres at one time. Before the Spanish came to California, these oak groves were owned by communities and families. The oak tree was a source of food. It was a source of medicine. The acorn was a major starch staple for us. It really sustained my ancestors for thousands of generations on this land.
Coast live oak can be home to up to 5,000 species of insects, birds, and wildlife. They really create the environment that promotes the health of all the plants that we grow here. They continue to be a resource because they really are a cornerstone for life.
I can stop thinking about how old this relative is and all the generations of people that have come by and life that's passed it by. It's rare that you see something this old, especially in the Los Angeles area. They just don't exist anymore.
When the Spanish Empire and the Mexican government Southern California into giant ranchos were some of the most obvious markers to use as boundaries. Here at this Sound of the Artificers, there was an old oak tree in the property that was used as one of these boundary trees. It was called the Polo Verdugo, and it delineated the boundary between 3 different ranches.
Spanish used the land for agriculture and cattle. They also brought with them a different idea about how we use the land from the native people that they discovered here. It was an agriculture that was highly controlled versus the forms of agriculture that the native people practiced.
It was the first garden migration to California.
These huge ranchos were being established, thousands of acres. And when they put cattle on them, those cattle went around grazing all those thousands of acres.
The history of the Spanish colonization is a history of in the interest of this human fit.
When the Americans conquered California in the late 1840s, they changed the way California thought of the land again. And land became a commodity, became something to turn into profit. At the end of the 19th century, the paradox about Los Angeles is that it had no natural advantages whatsoever. It was essentially a dry place walled in by mountains and deserts. It had no natural harbor, had no coal, had no timber, had no gold, had no rivers. They had a lot of land. How did they sell it? With an idea that this could be a garden, that the climate was somehow miraculous. They turned what was a deficiency into an enormous resource.
The big move to the state of California that eventually will make it the Golden State was a promotional deal basically and selling heaven on earth.
Southern California was thought of as a sort of nature's wonderland where you could grow fruit, vegetables from anywhere in the world and not only grow them, but they would thrive. You could stroll through Los Angeles all day and not escape green at all. It was a luxurious garden city. The idea that you could come to Southern California and for a few dollars down, grow oranges in the sun in December, powerful lure to people. The hopes and dreams of an entire culture were, it seemed, made possible in Southern California.
Descanso Gardens began as a private estate, owned by a man named Manchester Bodie, who purchased the land in 1938. And he called it Rancho del Descanso, of rest. Manchester Bodie was a very successful businessman in the publishing and newspaper business. And the benefits of that were the resources to purchase 160 acres of prime real estate in La Cañada, which became his estate and is today essentially the property of Descanso Gardens. This is Mr. Bodie's seat. We've accumulated some artifacts. As you can see from the setting here, he was interested in a lot of things. He was a man of business, but he was also an editor, publisher, and an avid horticulturist. I think that Bodie found a perfect situation here with his Rancho del Descanso in La Cañada and his thriving newspaper business. I think Bodie had a sense of the importance of the West in the overall historical narrative that was being written about the United States. He was focused on his ranch, his example, as an example in history of the spirit of the people on the West Coast. Equal value given to urbanity and the land itself. After the construction of the house was complete, Bodie begins to landscape the property. And he was interested particularly in plants whose origin was Asia. In doing that, he met the growers in the San Gabriel Valley of Japanese descent, who were running large-scale commercial nursery operations to provide landscape planting for the rising development that was happening in Los Angeles at that time.
The early 20th century labor force for residential gardening was really invented by Japanese immigrant and Japanese American men who came to developing metropolitan Los Angeles. They discovered that they could make a living by tending other people's gardens.
Bodie buys tens of thousands of camellia plants in 1942. He realized that he was going to need a permanent year-round source of water to irrigate them because they come from a climate where they receive 70, 80 inches of rain a year, which is not going to happen in the Los Angeles basin. So purchased a canyon across the La Crescenta Valley in the foothills of the San Gabriel Mountains to produce a year-round supply of water to irrigate his camellia plantation. And that source of water still runs and provides about half the water that we use today. After Bodie establishes a viable camellia plantation here at Rancho del Descanso, that takes him into the cut flower business, because at that time in the 40s and early 50s, the camellia was a very high demand, very exotic, very fashionable flower. And particularly in the Midwest and the East Coast because it blooms in the winter.
People arrive here and they want to grow something from home, but it doesn't necessarily grow well here. Bodie kind of took that upon himself, and he was really focused on hybridizing and creating new varieties of plants to grow. He worked with Howard Asper to create better camellias.
Bodie soon was running a thriving camellia business here that consisted of creating hybrids, creating plants for sale, and most of all, sending thousands and thousands of cut flowers to the East Coast in the winter.
At Descanso, there's one of the greatest camellia collections in the world because of the extraordinary oak cover here. The oaks and the camellias, those forever will be the defining feature of Descanso Gardens.
The origin story of the camellias at Descanso was, for many years, not discussed.
On December 7th, 1941, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. Immediately afterwards, because of pre-existing racism and just the hysteria. On February 19th, 1942, President Roosevelt issued an executive order, 9066, which enabled the mass incarceration of Japanese Americans from the West Coast without any trial or hearing. Just if you were of Japanese ancestry, someone like me had to be removed from our homes and go into the interior 10 camps in the United States that held 100,000 Japanese Americans. After that executive order, these American citizens and American residents had to leave all their belongings behind. They had to pay at cut-rate prices. In Southern California, 1,000 acres of flowers were farmed by Japanese Americans. And that was kind of half of the flowers in the whole region.
Bodie, along with his superintendent, Howard Asper, in this moment, but they also had this deep compassion for the Japanese Americans who had become their friends through the camellia trade. Bodie bought the entire inventories from two Japanese American families, the Uematsu family of Star Nursery and the Yoshimura family of the San Gabriel Nursery. They were camellia growers. He paid a fair price for the plants and triggered the idea that he could actually use his Rancho del Descanso as a business enterprise in the camellia trade. Bodie also took over and helped run during the period of internment a nursery that was on the Yoshimura family. And that business continues to this day.
This is the ledger of the landscaping accounts that the nursery did. It ends on April 8th, 1942. As you can see, all the rest of the pages are blank. This is when they were sent away. The camellias that are at Descanso Garden, many came from my family's nursery, and they're still thriving and have outlived my grandparents. It's a very nice connection to have.
It never made any sense to me that the origin of the camellias needed to be hidden or apologized for or muffled. The Japanese community was immensely influential in the San Gabriel Valley and other parts of
the reintegration of the Japanese from an alien race that had to be locked up. The community, in a sense, it was an enormous step forward. And by the 1960s, those people had come back. Their reintegration into the fabric of this community, part of it symbolically was in the building of Japanese gardens. Here at Descanso, we built these beautiful things as a celebration, in essence, of their culture, but also that they were being reintegrated into American culture after the trauma of internment.
After the war, Bodie began to look upon Rancho del Descanso as a possible business enterprise. And to pursue his interest in horticultural development, he hired Dr. Walter Lammerts, who was a very well-known plant biologist and hybridizer. Lammerts had a particular interest in roses, and very shortly thereafter, we find in the records the evidence of a new garden, a rose garden. It was about an acre, and it featured roses that Lammerts had hybridized here. Visitors to the gardens will see a rose garden with 3,000 rose plants representing both New World roses. From the standpoint of decorative horticulture, the rose is probably the single best known and most well-loved decorative plant in the world.
Roses are really interesting because they're this amazing plant that we've been growing and manipulating for thousands of years. There are so many different species and varieties. In our garden, we have over 600 varieties of roses, and that's just a drop in the bucket. We're standing right by Queen Elizabeth, which is a rose that was hybridized at Descanso Gardens by Walter Lammerts. It was actually his first rose that he hybridized at the gardens and one of his most famous roses. He was really important in the hybridization of roses at this time. A lot of roses were failing because the genes were overbred. He brought in different genetics from species roses that really helped the roses flower and grow better. He bred a whole new class of roses called the Grandiflora roses, and this is an example of that type of rose.
A whole new category of roses was created by human intervention. That category of plant bloomed early, it bloomed often, and it bloomed steadily. And it's the bloom, it's the flower that we love. Because people are pollinators too.
My name is Tom Caruth. I'm a rose hybridizer. My career now has spanned 38 years. I've introduced 142 varieties, many of which are here in Descanso Gardens. This is Cinco de Mayo, Wild Blue Yonder. This is Sentimental. When you go about crossing a rose, you have a goal in mind that you want to achieve. It can be petal shape, shape of the flower, certainly the fragrance, and the color is a big factor because that's your first impact. This is Julia Child. This rose has been introduced in England, in Japan, in France, in Czechoslovakia, in South Africa, in Australia. It's going to be the top 5 of my entire career, I'm certain.
Roses have a number of meanings in different cultures. First of all, they're gorgeous. They smell amazing. Roses are also this kind of a paradox. They have this extraordinary feminine beauty and this kind of quite vicious armor with the thorns. So it's poetically fruitful. It provides metaphors. For much of the 20th century, Los Angeles thought that it could tame nature, it could conquer nature. In some ways, you can look at Descanso Gardens and the roses and the camellias and various plants here, and you can see a recapitulation of that taming of nature. I think a rose is just a good way to demonstrate your taste, your success, the climate that you live in. Anybody who gardens would like to be able to show off their garden if they're successful. It's always an aspect of culture. That's what culture means, is to actually grow plants. If you do it well, it's a demonstration of your own culture.
Flowers are just like almost any other commodity. They go in cycles and trends. The 40s unfolded after the war. New competition was introduced in the cut flower business due to new forms of freight transportation, particularly the aircraft. And Bodie was smacked with a terrible case of plant disease that killed lots of his camellia plants. Bodie has a hypothesis that he can find a way to continue to make a good living, but be more closely connected to his land. In 1950, as an experiment, Bodie opened his estate to the public. He did a little bit of publicity, opened his gates, and on this momentous day attracted over 5,000 visitors to his ranch. The neighbors were so by this one Sunday in May that when Bodie began to seek the necessary legal permission to operate his privately owned property as a public attraction, he was denied the permits because of neighbor resistance to the idea of having a commercial activity sprout up in their private neighborhood. Not in my backyard. After several months of campaigning, it's necessary to do that, it became clear to Bodie that he was not going to be successful. Bodie does what a businessman does. Bodie says, all right then, if you won't let me operate my business the way I want to on property that I own, then I'm going to sell. Bodie puts the estate on the market and discovers this interest from developers, of course. It's a beautiful piece of property in the middle of a growing suburban community. It's quite well off. He finds Walt Disney. He has this idea for a theme park that features his characters. Bodie finds interest in other areas of how the property could be used. One of them has solid waste disposal facilities. Because the shape of this land is perfect. It's a large bowl that faces east. There were a number of proposals, each one of which seemed to be a worse fate for the property than what Mr. Bodie proposed. It was then that the neighbors organized themselves and made an approach to the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors to purchase Bodie's estate, the house, the canyon with the water, everything associated with the newly named Descanso Gardens, and add it to their growing inventory of public gardens.
Southern California in the 1950s was in the midst of a huge economic and population boom. Los Angeles County and its government saw facilitating that urban growth as its mission. They did that through the construction of freeways, the construction of storm drains and sewers, all of this infrastructure that would support the growing footprint of the metropolis. Within that impulse was a recognition that the residents of LA County might need green spaces. The county's purchase of Descanso Gardens in the early 1950s could be seen as part of its mission to facilitate the growth of the Southern California region. Post-World War II, Southern California was intoxicated with its own growth and horrified by it. It was exploding, doubling in population almost as you watched it, in what's essentially a place where you shouldn't have 22 million people. The garden became an even more important aspect of maintaining our rationality, maintaining our health. People felt needed to flee the city to rediscover the garden. So we spread farther and farther. And now there are 22 million people from the Mexican border to Santa Barbara, all looking for that garden.
When the boom in population takes place in Southern California and houses are closer and closer together, leaving less and less land for gardens, more and more it's necessary to have these lungs in an urban landscape, these lungs where we can actually breathe and to reconnect with ourselves in nature.
It soon became apparent that Descanso Gardens wasn't a priority for Los Angeles County. The gardens were reporting huge losses every year. Some on the Board of Supervisors thought it might be better to sell the land.
Many of the same neighbors who had organized against Bodie, they formed a support group. They organized themselves into a group they called the Descanso Gardens Guild, and they began doing fundraising projects. None of them were horticulturists. None of them were botanists. They were just good, solid, community-minded people who wanted to preserve and protect this beautiful asset for future generations. In 1957, when the Guild got organized, they wrote a vision statement for themselves. And the vision statement is the base of the garden's mission to this day. These volunteers, the ladies and the one gentleman of the Guild, started something that was based upon their love of having this garden in their neighborhood. The garden was about education. It was about learning to appreciate the plants, learning to love the flowers, and learning to look at the place as a part of our collective culture and heritage. The Guild's first project predicted the future of Descanso down the line. The ladies of the Guild had influence from a very, very important person in the horticulture history of Los Angeles, and that's Theodore Payne.
Theodore Payne was an English horticulturist. He moved to Southern California when he was 20 and fell in love with California native plants. He saw that these plants were being destroyed by development in the turn of the last century. So he brought them into cultivation. And over the course, advocate, educator for California native horticulture.
The idea they come up with is to celebrate native habitat and native plants, to show people that there were alternatives to the manicured lawn, the roses in the flower beds aesthetic that is really deeply embedded in American history, primarily because it was imported from Europe.
Manifestation of how our gardens are really migration products. Many of our ideals of the perfect garden have been transplanted from England